Okay, so if you're working in data science or machine learning, maybe just wrangling complex data, the notebook tool you choose really sets your pace. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling what feels like a pretty high stakes question for 2025: Jupyter Notebook versus Google Colab. The sources we've looked at frame this really well. It's like this legendary duel, two very different approaches. You've got Jupyter, this sort of robust veteran, open source classic. Think of it like your own custom workshop, right? Totally personalizable. And then there's the challenger, Google Colab, younger, faster, cloud-based. It's like the Nomad, instant, easy access, backed by massive infrastructure. So we really need to unpack which one, or maybe even both, makes the most strategic sense for you.
Yeah, that strategic angle is crucial now because things have really shifted, haven't they? I mean, in 2025, you've got this huge boom in generative AI. Plus, remote work is just, well, it's the norm. So these interactive notebooks, they're not just coding tools anymore. They're basically the main canvas for collaborating, for experimenting fast, and a quick bit of history kind of sets the stage. Jupyter, that came out of IPython Notebook back in, 2014. It was revolutionary.
Wow.
Open source standard, mixing code, results, text. Colab arrived later, 2017. Technically a fork of Jupyter, but Google built it on their cloud. And that brought two pretty game-changing things right away: real-time collaboration and free access to serious hardware, like GPUs.
Right, and that origin story really explains the user stats we're seeing. The numbers are pretty clear. Something like 70% of data science pros use one of these daily. But yeah, the audience split is interesting. You see almost 40% of beginners using Colab monthly. They love that zero setup ease, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jupyter still totally dominates in, let's say, serious academic settings and the big enterprise shops, places where having that local control is just non-negotiable.
So our mission today, really, is to help you look past just the features list. We want you to understand the implications of how each tool is designed. It's not just about what you prefer aesthetically. It's about picking the environment that truly, speeds up your work.
And yeah, that choice makes a real difference. We saw updated studies from 2025 showing that using these notebooks effectively, it can cut down machine learning prototyping time by like 40%.
40%, that's huge.
That's a massive competitive edge we're talking about. Okay, let's dive into the first round. Installation and accessibility, the setup. How easy is it to just get started?
Well, Jupyter asks for commitment up front. Like you said, it's kind of the IKEA furniture approach. It's powerful, sure, but getting it running usually means wrestling with Anaconda or maybe getting stuck in pip install hell.
Oh, dependency conflicts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there.
Right. And if you hit those, which, let's be honest, you probably will if you use enough different packages, you can genuinely lose hours just debugging the environment before writing any code. That's the Jupyter tax, you could call it.
I definitely have some lingering trauma from trying to make old TensorFlow versions play nice with specific Python libraries. Yeah. But the flip side is you get total control. Once it's installed, Jupyter runs locally. It runs offline. And that makes it the absolute go-to for labs or companies dealing with really sensitive data, where privacy is just paramount.
Colab basically eliminates that whole setup problem. It's zero setup. You just open your web browser, sign in with your Google account, and boom, you've got Python or R or Julia ready to go instantly.
And the free tier is pretty capable, right?
Yeah, surprisingly so. I mean, there's Colab Pro if you need more horsepower, like up to 100 gigs of RAM for the really heavy stuff. But honestly, the free version is good enough for, well, the sources suggest about 80% of users, people doing smaller projects.
Okay, so the takeaway here feels pretty immediate. Colab's the winner for just speed and ease of getting started. A 10 out of 10 for novices or anyone who just needs to get coding now. But if you're, that control freak, the pro, who needs absolute beta privacy, offline capability, then Jupyter, even with the setup hassle, is still probably the strategic pick. Solid 9 out of 10 for control.
Agreed. It's a clear trade-off.
All right, so once you've actually got the notebook open, the next fight begins. Performance and resources, let's call it the GPU war.
Yeah, and this is where Colab has historically had a massive strategic edge. It gives users seamless, often free, access to powerful hardware. We're talking NVIDIA T4 GPUs, even TPUs sometimes, stuff that's crucial for deep learning. So you can actually train quite serious models without, completely melting your own laptop.
Okay, wait, I saw a figure in the sources, 3x acceleration. Is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds huge. Is that like across the board or more for specific tasks where those TPUs really shine?
Yeah, that 3x number comes from a 2024 paper focusing specifically on deep learning training. So yeah, for things like training foundation models or anything that needs tons of matrix math, having that free cloud hardware is just a massive speed boost compared to running on a standard local CPU.
Right.
It basically gives the individual user access to what feels like a server rack without the cost or complexity,
Mm-hmm.
democratizes it in a way.
Okay. And Jupyter, on the other hand, it just runs on whatever machine you have.
Right.
Its performance is tied directly to your local hardware.
Exactly. If you've got a monster desktop with a nice RTX graphics card, great, you're probably fine.
But if you're on a thin and light laptop,
Then yeah, you're going to feel the limitations pretty quickly.
yeah.
Now, you can scale Jupyter massively even. You can set it up on cloud servers like AWS or use systems like Jupyter Hub, which is basically a server designed to host notebooks for multiple users.
And there are extensions too, right? Like voila.
Yeah, Voila is cool. It lets you turn your notebook into a standalone dashboard, kind of like a simple web app, without needing a whole separate framework. But notice the theme here. Scaling Jupyter always needs extra setup, external configuration, often extra cost.
Yeah, that's a key point.
Hey.
But Colab has its own big constraint. We need to mention that free tier timeout.
Right, the runtime limit.
You get maybe 9-12 hours of compute time per day, and then you're just cut off. So if you're training a model that needs, say, 48 hours straight,
You're either paying for Colab Pro or you're forced back to a local setup, or maybe breaking your training into chunks.
exactly. Whereas Jupyter running locally is great if you're dealing with truly enormous data sets that you need to keep on your own machine.
Okay, so let's boil down the key specs for you, the listener.
Roughly 12 GB RAM, 2 virtual CPUs, that limited daily GPU access, and critically requires internet.
Unlimited local CPU and RAM, whatever your hardware supports. Full offline power. But you have to configure any GPUs or TPUs yourself, externally usually. Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears to the human side. Collaboration and community. Especially now, with so much remote work, how these tools handle working together is, well, it's critical.
And this is where the tools really diverge strategically. Colab is just built for social coding. It's dominant here. Think Google Docs, but for code. You share a link, people jump in, edit, leave comments, see each other's cursors in real time.
That tweet calling it the Slack of notebooks felt pretty spot on. It's designed for that fast back-and-forth iteration you need in teams.
Absolutely. For remote teams, it's often the default choice. Jupyter's collaboration is, well, it's more manual, less smooth for that kind of dynamic work. Typically, you're managing versions through GitHub, sharing the actual .ipmb file itself.
And then hoping the other person's environment is set up the same way so they can actually run it without errors.
Exactly, that friction. It can be a real workflow killer, especially for fast-moving startups or smaller teams.
Okay, but we can't dismiss Jupyter's role in academia and maybe more formal, high-compliance places. The sources mentioned, 60% of papers on RSIF still use Jupyter formats?
Yeah, that's a huge number.
And why is that? I guess because the local setup forces you, or at least encourages you, to create these standard, well-documented, reproducible environments.
It becomes the gold standard for that kind of formal documentation and sharing research.
So the strategic takeaway feels pretty clear here, too. Colab is king for dynamic, remote teams, collaborative teaching. Anywhere speed and real-time feedback are paramount.
Yeah. Well, Jupyter remains the go-to format for formal academic work, deep solo projects where control is key, or maybe archiving things properly. All right, round 4, personalization and extension. How much can you really tweak these tools to fit your specific, maybe even quirky workflow?
And this is where Jupyter really shines. It's the chameleon, right? Because it's open source and runs locally, it's fundamentally built to be flexible. Kernels for over 100 languages. That's incredible freedom. Not just Python, but R, Julia, Scala.
Yeah.
You name it.
Yeah, the language support is huge.
Plus custom themes, interactive widgets for specialized plots.
Yeah.
You can build really bespoke data viz stuff.
And it's not standing still either. We saw that Jupyter Lab 4.0 brought in much better debugging tools, kind of like what you get in VS Code, but right inside Jupyter.
So it's pushing back against that idea that only cloud tools feel modern. It gives the artisans, the tinkerers, the depth they crave.
Right, whereas Colab is more sleek, more standardized, you get less visual customization, you're mostly living within Google's design language.
But it uses its cloud nature cleverly.
Exactly. It integrates things like Gemini AI for code completion, which can genuinely speed things up. And doing quick.pip installs on the fly just works really smoothly because everyone's running the same base environment.
So less tinkering, but maybe faster out of the box for standard tasks.
That's a good way to put it. And the numbers seem to support that artisan-sprinter split. There was a report from Moto Labs suggesting Jupyter keeps hold of about 55% more users whose main thing is creating really custom, specialized workflows, maybe things needing odd language support or complex system integrations.
Okay, so Jupyter for the artisans meaning deep customization and language flexibility. Colab for the sprinters who want standardized speed and maybe some AI assistance. Got it. Okay, last round. Costs and sustainability. Everyone likes free, but what's the real cost of using these tools?
Well, on the surface, yeah, both seem free. Colab Pro exists, offering more power and removing some limits for around $10 a month, which is pretty low, honestly, for what you get.
A low barrier to entry for more power.
Right, and Jupyter itself, the software license, is genuinely free forever, open source. And it's big, but you, the user, have to cover the cost of your hardware, your powerful laptop, maybe cloud servers if you need to scale. And don't forget the time cost of maintaining that environment.
Ah, the hidden costs.
Yeah.
Right. And beyond just money, there's an interesting point about sustainability in the sources.
Yeah, the Green Software Foundation report.
It suggested that for certain really intensive tasks, like a huge model training run, Colab's centralized cloud setup might actually be more energy efficient overall, compared to having, say, dozens of researchers all maxing out their own individual machines for days on end.
It's an interesting point. Centralized resources can be optimized in ways distributed ones can't. So this cost round, it kind of ends in what we might call an ethical draw, or maybe a strategic one. The choice really boils down to your financial approach. Do you prefer a predictable, low monthly fee for scalable power when you need it? That's Colab Pro. Or do you prefer the maybe higher upfront cost of buying good hardware, taking on the maintenance, but having total control and no recurring software fees? That's Jupyter. All right, let's try and wrap this up. The final verdict seems clear. In 2025, neither tool delivers a knockout punch. It's not that simple.
Jupyter is still that strategic workhorse. For deep exploration, total local control, offline work, you see it used in, what, 80% of university data science courses? That tells you something about its foundational role.
Absolutely. But Colab, with its incredible accessibility, that zero setup, and the free ML acceleration, it absolutely conquers the collaboration space. And anywhere speed to market is key. I mean, 10 million plus users. That's massive adoption.
So it seems the smartest approach isn't really either.
Exactly. For most people, the winning strategy is likely hybrid. Use Colab to kick the tires on an idea for quick prototyping, easy sharing with teammates, and tapping into those free GPUs when you need that burst of power for training. Then maybe you pivot back to Jupyter on your local machine for more control, for handling massive or sensitive data sets, for that final polish where you need absolute certainty about the environment and dependencies.
That hybrid approach makes a lot of sense, and using both tools effectively is probably why, as the sources noted, they're collectively democratizing data science so much. Lowering the barrier to entry significantly, maybe by 50%, according to recent estimates.
Yeah, it's putting powerful tools in more hands.
Okay, but before everyone rushes off to refactor their workflows, let's quickly cover the two biggest traps, the pitfalls you need to avoid. Trap number 1, cloud dependence with Colab. Outages are rare, sure, but they do happen. And if Google Cloud has a blip, your Colab notebooks might be inaccessible. You're just stuck.
Essential to have backup.
Absolutely essential. You must have a solid local backup system for everything you do in Colab, even if you spend 90% of your time there.
Yeah.
Git integration helps, but have those .ipnb files saved locally too.
Good advice. And trap number 2 is all about privacy and compliance. If you're handling sensitive stuff, patient data, secret company formulas, whatever Jupyter running locally is almost always the safer default choice. Using Colab for that kind of data requires very strict anonymization procedures up front, and you really need to understand Google's data policies inside and out. Otherwise, you could easily run into serious compliance trouble.
Right. Know the rules before you play the game, especially with sensitive info. Okay, so we've laid out the strategic landscape, the facts, the pros and cons in the context of 2025. Now, really, the application, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Here's a challenge for you this week. Take a project you're currently working on, maybe one that feels a bit clunky, and try migrating it from one platform to the other.
Move a Jupyter project to Colab, or vice versa. Just see where you hit friction, see where you feel the benefits. That hands-on experience is invaluable.
Great challenge. Get your hands dirty. And one final thought to leave you with as you close your notebook tonight.
We're seeing challengers popping up, right? Tools like DeepNote are now open sourcing parts of their platforms, putting pressure on both Jupyter and Colab.
The landscape is definitely still evolving fast. So the question to mull over is, How quickly might this whole picture change again, say, by 2026? And maybe more fundamentally, how much control are you personally willing to give up to the cloud in exchange for convenience and speed? That's the ongoing tension, isn't it? Control versus convenience.
It really is. Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into the notebook duel. Until next time, keep optimizing that workflow.